Let's have a look at an exciting new industry that seems to emerge in research and development, photonic chips. So the idea or the promise is that we use light, photons, instead of electricity, electrons, to process and distribute information. So I will quickly read this one I found online. The laws of physics are immutable. Put simply, there are no limits to how fast an electron can travel through copper. Right, so this is like the traditional chip. We send electrons through copper. The speed of an electron, while fast on a microscopic scale, encounters significant resistance as pathways shrink, leading to heat generation and power inefficiencies. And I should say, electrons can actually reach like half of the speed of light, right? So by using speed of light instead of electrons, you can already like double from first principles basis the speed of electricity using photons. Of course, doubling, it's still the same, like I would say order of magnitude. It's not like a factor of 10 difference. It's not like a factor of 1000 difference in speed benefit we would get by using light over electrons. And of course, it also incurs significant costs. But the main benefit is also not speed. I would say the main benefit is bandwidth, and what they mentioned here, it's the reduced resistance and increased energy efficiency. So in contrast, silicon photonics circumvents these electrical limitations by harnessing the swiftness of photons, which travel at the speed of light and are not bound by the resistive properties of materials like copper. Right? So we don't need to worry about things like cooling and stuff. Unlike electrons, photons do not generate significant heat, can carry more data due to their high frequency, and suffer from less signal degradation. Okay, and we can, in light, we can encode, of course, with laser and so high frequency. We can encode lots and lots of information and send it via light. It's not a novel idea at all, right? It's like the Romans using fire to send information across the country, right, with a chain of fire, with a fire network, basically. So the rough idea I got from Nicholas Harris, from the CEO of Light Matter, also like a professor and skilled in photonics research, so focused on photonics chips. Like he had this idea, like this visual to describe it. With photonics, you can perform multiple calculations at the same time because the data is coming in on different colors of light. So you have a larger bandwidth, right? He's also focusing more on the bandwidth of, more on how much data you can encode in the light rather than how fast the light travels, right? Because electricity almost reaches like a speed of light. In one color, you can have a photo of a dog. In another color, you could have a photo of a cat. In another color, maybe a tree, and you could have all three of those operations going through the same optical computing unit, this matrix accelerator, at the same time. I mean, this is the idea, right? The rough idea. This is like a very theoretical, big picture idea. It sounds good, but of course, the devil lies in the detail. For instance, like how to memory is usually much better. So we would use electricity for storing things, right? Because light is also, like, light is fast, but light is also very volatile, so to say, and it can get lost and diffused quickly. So if we actually need to store data as opposed to just transmit data, we cannot use light anymore, right? It's like the Romans who light a fire to send a signal. If they actually want to store this signal, you would have to then use electricity to do it, right? So electricity is much better. So, and which means that in such a processing chip, a photonic chip, you would have to somehow like connect it to the electric memory where you can load the data from and store the data in, or store like intermediary results in this electric memory. So you would have to transform data from electric signal to light signal back and forth. So which could like add some complexity, which will add significant complexity and also latency. That drives up operations per area, and it reuses the hardware that's there, driving up energy efficiency. Okay, so this is a rough idea, right? But also Light Matter, he's like a CEO of a company that has an interest in photonic computing. So obviously he would like focus more on the benefits. You could think like this. This was almost written like a description of quantum computer. That's why I quickly checked out like the difference between photonic chips and quantum chips. Why a quantum computer? Because you would process things at the same time, right? It almost like feels like quantum computer, where the qubit or the quantum bit actually takes on multiple states at the same time, right? You could think of all the information encoded in a light beam or so as a qubit. You could think of it that way. But actually, if you compare it like photonic computing and quantum computing, you would quickly see that like photonic computing is more down to earth, I would say, than quantum computing. Quantum computing is still like a big question mark. I just checked out watched a talk by Google, and it's like nothing really tangible. I mean, they have managed to create qubits, but they have too few qubits. It's too expensive per compute unit, right? Like the traditional computing is still more efficient and cost efficient and stuff, and in many cases even faster. And yeah, it's much too expensive. And like nothing against quantum or even photonic computing. I'm not an expert in both, but I think both areas will scale up over the upcoming decades, but it's very unclear, and potentially there are third ways that are even more efficient than those ways that we will figure out over time. And we have like a very good way currently to scale computation, right? I mean, using accelerated computing and GPU, NVIDIA already gives us like a doubling roughly every 2 years or so. I don't even know the math. Maybe I think the cost per AI compute reduces by 90% for every cumulative doubling of AI computing, and we double really fast these days. So photonic computing is kind of more down-to-earth approach, something that will happen probably quicker than quantum computing, and quantum computing might make use of light in order to simulate kind of qubits. But this is like, they might use photons, for instance, to do this. But this is like a big question mark. It's more sci-fi, quantum computing, and photonic computing is, we could think of photonic chips being produced in, say, 10 years or so, or 5 years. Okay, so now this is one paper everybody is now talking about, like the last couple of months. It's called Integrated Lithium Niobate Microwave Photonic Processing Engine. Very complicated. The promise here, I got this, like the TLDR, this promise out of this paper. The functional tool bit of our LN photonic image processing engine could be further expanded and parallelized, leveraging the excellent scalability of our platform, leading to more advanced functions like matrix multiplication and enabling a variety of future photonics-enabled AI and computer vision technologies. Okay, so it's like, especially this matrix multiplication. I just had a video on the Finxter channel about the importance of matrix multiplication, which is the primitive of our time, the most important computational unit, so to say, is matrix multiplication. If we can scale this up, we would scale everything up. We would scale up human progress significantly. So matrix multiplication is the thing we all want. It's like the the ultimate compute unit. Good, but this paper, basically, the paper now is now let's start the bashing, right? because it all sounds nice in theory, it all sounds nice on paper. You can write a fancy Nature paper with it. You could write those things, and reviewers would be impressed, right? And there's a lot of very complicated and complex research going on, very complicated language, complicated words, evaluations going on. Even if you produce a prototype or something, it is impressive and it's necessary and needed for humanity, right? That's why the people can actually publish a paper in Nature. But as a scientist myself, I know that like, the way you write paper is you first get them excited about the prospects and the future and so on, and then you try to give some like initial results. You do some demonstration, or maybe you run experiments on a quote unquote real world data set. But oftentimes the scale needed for real life, like real world data is much larger than any like university-based research institute could offer. So for instance, when I ran large experiments on graphs, my graphs were always like 1 or 2 orders of magnitude smaller than the real graphs, right? Because it's just like I didn't have the hardware, I didn't have the infrastructure, I didn't have a team, coding team or so. I was just like a lonely researcher, right, with very little resources. And the researchers now working for Meta, working for Google, working for NVIDIA, they always killed us at university. So if you publish this paper, you should be like, the words sound fancy, but oftentimes there are some limitations on practicability, right? And this paper, if you look at the evaluations again, we see they did evaluations on 250 times 250 pixels. So which is like tiny. It's not even. It is very questionable. Like any conclusion you can draw out of this kind of evaluation. I understand why it's published in a Nature paper, right? Because it's very impressive. But any conclusion you draw from these small evaluations is very wacky. And for instance, they claim they are 1,000 times faster than Intel Xeon CPU using this photonic chip, but then again what is this for? What is like using the Intel Xeon CPU as a benchmark? It's like a joke, right? Because like for instance, yesterday I created a video about NVIDIA's new Blackwell chip. I did a deep dive on the Blackwell GB200 chip. With an NVLink 72 technology to connect the Blackwell 72 Blackwell chips, and I showed that a single Blackwell chip, not like one out of 72 Blackwell chip, a single one was already like 36,000 times more performant in terms of the number of operations they can process than my NVIDIA GeForce GPU on my computer, right? So it's more than the Blackwell chip, the state-of-the-art technology chip, which is not photonic, is already like 10,000 times more performant than my own NVIDIA hardware. But now they used an Intel Xeon CPU. It's not even a GPU, right? There is a CPU to do the analysis, which is even less performant than my NVIDIA GeForce on my computer. So if they would use traditional hardware, if they would use state-of-the-art hardware instead, if they would use this benchmark to compare against their photonic chip, if they would use the Blackwell GB200 chip with accelerated computing for AI-based workload, then it would smoke them, right? They could not publish the paper because it would be like orders of magnitude more performant in terms of throughput of AI workload or something, right? So the benchmark they choose, Intel Xeon CPU, is very weak in my opinion. And this is like a 2024 research paper. So next, okay, you can think of, okay, so let's maybe skip this one paper. It's only one paper, right? It's only research and doesn't make too much. Like we can always bash research, but what's the point? Research is still important. Now you could think of, okay, so are there some real startups? Yes, there are some real startups. An example is Light Matter. With a $1.2 billion valuation, so they are like 2,500 times less valuable than NVIDIA. So they are like 0.05% of NVIDIA in terms of market capitalization, so tiny. And probably they only got this because of some like say moonshot math. Very low, very, very, very extremely low probability, but if it like works, it would have a significant impact. And so in the latest funding round, they had this kind of valuation. And if you check out the website, you will see very interesting GIFs. But they are often cited as the leaders in photonic chip production. Right? Because now I wanted to look for somebody who's actually producing like products I can buy, and they are often cited, but actually you cannot buy the products. You can just contact them. It's just they present the products, they give nice and beautiful looking GIFs. The website is really kind of beautiful. It's nicely designed and stuff. And of course they have like a great team, I would say, like a team coming from MIT and Stanford and Silicon Valley companies. So very impressive company. Sorry about that. Very impressive company, but it's like very questionable that they can actually compete with a traditional chip manufacturer, electric chip manufacturer, in any way, right? In any way, shape or form. It's really a long shot if I've ever seen one. And now look at this guy. This was actually the reason why I came to this topic, because one Finxter sent me a reaction video on a reaction email on one of my recent videos on NVIDIA, where he gave me this video from Inside China Business, and he said that China is now close to mass producing these photonic chips. And he gave like this source he had like 7 sources or so in the video. And I was really open-minded. I thought, okay, nice, maybe I can find some new opportunities. I can maybe this photonic chip is huge, and I already was very excited talking to my wife about this chip. And with this excitement, I went into the research. I really tried to confirm my excitement, finding supportive evidence that this is great, and we will soon see 1000x in compute anywhere, right? And we will solve all our compute problems and stuff. So I was really excited about this new research. But then I went through all these sources and found like papers like this one I already presented to you, where they compared themselves with the CPU, which is like multiple orders of magnitude less performant than the state-of-the-art benchmark. And I found this article, and if you go through the sources, so let's do the exercise. Let's go through the sources. Yao Yang, this one is a Yao Yang. He's a Chinese professor or something, dean of Peking University. So again, academia. So wherever I look, it's just academia. There's no evidence of a company actually producing the photonic chips and actually like working on a production. It's all pie in the sky, right? Sorry for the language. So for instance, if you read this article, if you read the source, this dean or professor of Peking University, he is using language like some companies have begun investing in research and development of photonic chips. So it's not like companies have invested significant capital in production and manufacturing of photonic chips. No, it is some companies, not many, but some companies have just begun investing. So they spent maybe say $1 million or so, right? I mean, it sounds like this. Have begun investing in not production, but in research and development. So in creating papers, like and charts and stuff. Of photonic chips. So nothing against photonic chips. Again, I tend to believe that we will see photonic chips, so that using light makes sense, that we will see quantum computing and all the beautiful stuff. I'm really open to this kind of world, but I mean, this type of language, and I used Google Translate to translate it, but the kind of language it translated to me, like from this Yao Yang, this dean or professor of a Peking University, it doesn't instill confidence, right? Some companies plan to produce samples of some hybrid chips and practical commercial chips in about 3 years. So look at the language. Some companies, they plan. So this already hatches everything, because you can always plan anything. There are companies planning to produce samples of quantum computing this month or so, but they won't do it, right? Most companies won't do it, and some might produce samples. Like Google has already produced samples of qubits, for instance, for I don't know, many years. But it's not about samples. It's about like getting to scale and making it cost efficient, so that actually the computation per operation is cheaper than the existing chips that are out there. And mind you, the existing chips that are out there, for instance, NVIDIAs, Blackwell, and so on, they become cheaper and cheaper with every passing year, like on an exponential curve, right? The cost decline in compute is already significant for electrical chips. So it's also a moving target, right, for photonic chips, what they would have to disrupt. And there's no scale whatsoever. They have not even produced, say, 1 million chips or something, right? But we would have to scale up by, I don't know, 6 orders of magnitude or so. And initially there would be significant loss for every produced chip, and then over time there would be some learning effect or Wright's law kicking in. But then, I mean, there must be something significant better in these photonic chips, and it must be really tangible. Otherwise nobody would buy them, and we would have to throw money at this problem. So, but it seems like very, very early stage, if at all. It's only a few Nature paper. It's only scientists currently involved in photonic chip production. And this is like, I'm not an expert. There might be more. There might be companies scaling it up. I feel I need to hedge this because, like, who am I? I'm just a guy on the internet. But I don't see anything tangible. If you find something tangible, then simply comment with the link in the description below. I will check it out, and I will also check out if the source has some merit or if it's just another blogger writing an opinion piece based on a Nature article, right? Okay, and so let's have another look at one of the sources provided by Inside China Business FAT. And also, I like this guy. I really like this guy. I think he's very skilled and so, but I think he didn't do a lot of research regarding this topic. He just gave some like links to articles that were written with ChatGPT and not well researched, and sometimes not even gave sources to their opinion, so where they drew their opinions from. And I had to research the sources myself, and these sources, like these papers I provide here, these actually are only papers. They have very limited experiments. For instance, this Tai Chi photonic chiplet, this was referenced by many sources with big claims, right? Like it was always like the headlines was always NVIDIA is dead, like headlines, something like this. Chinese scientists create chip that can perform AI 3,000 times faster than NVIDIA, right? So we have these kind of headlines, and then you look at the paper, and what the paper is actually doing has done some initial research on a prototype using like 1 million neural networks. So, but if you with a neural network with 1 million neurons, but 1 million neurons is like still here. It's 6 or 7 orders of magnitude smaller than we need in order to just go to the scale we currently have, right? With trillions of neurons. So it's like the scale is again much smaller because they are researchers. They don't have access to the large scale. It's only research, right? It's only creating a prototype. There's no mass production planned. And even if we had mass production, then we would just do mass. We would burn massive amounts of money because we would still lose money for every produced chip in the beginning. So very questionable, in my opinion. Okay. Again, I already showed this. Chinese scientists create chips that can perform AI tasks 3,000 times faster than NVIDIA's A100. Of course, you would click on this, right? But if you click on this and read the article, and you would see the article references a certain paper, and if you check out the paper and actually read the paper, which I did, then you find like signposts like these. We generated a traffic data set with 15 vehicles. I mean, these are like, again, Nature and Science paper, but they had like, this was the data set they used, a simulated traffic data set of 15 vehicles with 224 times 224 frames. Used it for a kind of AI training experiment, and now what they did, by contrast, Excel experimentally maintained high accuracy, even better than a digital 3-layer NNN, right? You see, like these are tiny evaluations, and even worse, I would say they are even misleading. So for instance, check out this highlighted section. To process sequential images in serial, Excel experimentally achieved a computing latency of 72 nanoseconds per frame, which sounds impressive compared to NVIDIA's 100 that achieved a latency of 0.26 milliseconds. So it looks like 3 orders of magnitude faster, right? Like a 3000x. This is where the 3000x difference comes from, because 0.266 milliseconds is 3000 times slower than 72 nanoseconds. So this is where this is where this whole big claim here comes from, right? This one experiment. But if you now read the experiment, what they did, here the sentence before, however, in a real-time vision task such as automatic driving on the road, we cannot capture multiple sequential images in advance for a GPU to make full use of its computing speed by processing multiple streams simultaneously. To process sequential images in serial. So they compared their chip with the GPU. Of course, they used the NVIDIA A100 GPU, but they fed it with sequential data, not even like with serial sequential data. And they had this one sentence defending it, this one sentence here, why they use sequential data and not parallel. But of course, GPUs are optimized for parallelized computing. You would not even use an NVIDIA A100 for such a task, because if you cannot parallelize the task, why bother purchasing an NVIDIA chip in the first place, right? NVIDIA is accelerated computing. It's only about parallelized execution. So again, this sounds like a misleading research paper. You have the big claims in the beginning, you have the headlines, 3000 times faster than NVIDIA, big words, then you have tiny evaluations showing some initial results, trying to support your claims, creating a nice sounding story around it, and then publishing it at a journal like Nature or Science, like a big science publication. But I mean, where is the real world use? Nobody would do this in the real world. Nobody would purchase an NVIDIA A100 if the task at hand cannot be parallelized. Right? So this 3000x performance different. It's a joke. It's not true in any way. because they didn't compare apples to oranges. They compared for a scenario where the A100 is not suitable to. And NVIDIA is very transparent that accelerated computing is about parallelizing the workload. So you have, for instance, single instruction, multiple data. You need to somehow be able to parallelize the execution, like matrix multiplication or so. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to use the NVIDIA H100 in the first place, right? So I find this somehow misleading. And again, like one indication, this was actually what I felt in this whole research, and I spent many hours now researching this. And I'm a researcher myself. I was a scientist. I have a PhD in computer science and distributed systems, and I couldn't find anything tangible. And I looked for tangible things. I was really excited about this research, but it was kind of disappointing. Good. Then another source here. Inside China Business gave us is about Huawei, who have undercut NVIDIA in pricing in China. So he argued that NVIDIA has significant problems because Huawei already produces cheaper chips or something. Now look at this. Here at the bottom. NVIDIA's H800 and A800 are banned in China due to US sanctions. Its other advanced product lines, including H100 and B100, have also been banned. And even those products are not the most advanced. We currently have the like H200 already, and we also have the Blackwell now. So they use like some older generation chips are banned in China. So they need to use, and then the even older generation chips are also banned. And then we have like they compared to really old generation chips and argue that Huawei has better price performance than these really old generation chips of NVIDIA. Okay, but I mean, what is the point of mentioning this in the first place? I mean, what is your conclusion out of this kind of very wacky argument. There's no conclusion to draw. Of course, like new hardware is better than old hardware, right? I mean, we are seeing this everywhere for decades. There's no information gain from this statement, and it doesn't mean anything for NVIDIA or its competitive position against Huawei or so. If Huawei's newest chips can now barely outperform NVIDIA's old chips, what's the point of mentioning this? And this is just for fun. Photonic chips only seem to exist in academia. This is my statement now, my opinion. State-of-the-art graphics look like this. Now look at this graphic. Does it look like an NVIDIA kind of evaluation or so? Of course, NVIDIA is like a big market cap company. But I mean, this is how research looks, right? This is only research. There's no real world production or manufacturing at this point in June 2024 regarding photonics chips, in my view. And you can prove me wrong. Please, I challenge you to prove me wrong. Okay, and so the photonics market forecast, this is also an interesting nugget I found online. So Vantage Research, like they sell their research for $6,999 per piece. They project revenue of photonics chips to be like 7.8 billion USD in 2030. So sorry for laughing, but this is like this is only 15% of NVIDIA's 2024 revenue in AI chips. Okay, so it's a complete joke. I mean, in 2030, in 6 years, probably NVIDIA will have doubled their revenue multiple times from AI chips, and like even if they didn't, the revenue from photonic chips would be significantly less, and the market on it would not disrupt NVIDIA's business model in any way. Like using this kind of Vantage Research forecast. Okay, so again, another disappointment, right? Everywhere you look, if you dive deep, you only see an academic who has some interest in pushing the narrative of photonic chips, or you find some not well-informed bloggers or politically motivated journalists pushing the narrative that, for instance, China will overtake US in chip production or something like this. But there's no like tangibility to it, in my opinion. This one I got from Anastasia in Tech, which I think it's a great channel. She also addressed this photonic chips topic, and she also said in one of the videos that the papers kind of look interesting, but that's all it is to it. So you see like there are some startups, but all of those startups would be like below $1 billion in funding. It's a bit older, right? So maybe Light Matter is still the freshest funding. They had Series B funding at 113 million at a valuation of 1.2 billion. But they are all tiny compared to NVIDIA, and of course there will always be some early stage startups for every industry. But on the other side, there's lots and lots of hype around these kind of photonic chips because it just sounds cool, right? And you always get clicks by claiming that NVIDIA will get overtaken by a new disruptive technology or China. Because everybody fears China, right? That's why the story somehow sticks. So that's my opinion. Thanks for listening to my opinion. I appreciate having you here. Please give me a like and subscribe to the Finxter channel. I would really love to have you here. We release videos like this every day. Currently, I'm really motivated keeping the channel, pushing forward the channel, and I see very good results. That's why I'm always motivated if people like the videos, and if a few hundred people watch my videos, I'm already happy. But some of our videos have recently got like 40,000, 50,000 views or so, which is great, I think, which is encouraging. And so I will keep pushing forward. Give me a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to support our research here at Finxter. My main purpose is to keep you on the right side of change among all the disruptions happening. I think photonic chips, we still have some time. You can also check out the free Finxter newsletter. Just go to finxter.com and subscribe, and with your email I will keep you informed about the new content we release. And we also have paid courses on the academy.finxter.com, so academy.finxter.com. You can browse the course library and see if anything interests you. And the courses are also designed, they focus on AI engineering, which means using the AI to create more value in today's world. I think this is like the cheat code, the secret hack to scale and massive explosive success in our time. And we will teach you how to use AI to create more value in the world. And from a technological perspective, we show you the technologies like LangGraph, like OpenLlama, Llama 3, like these technologies, the APIs, how to connect to Whisper speech generation with OpenAI, and all the beautiful stuff we show you on the Academy. So check out the Academy. It's really cheap. It's much cheaper compared to your university education, but probably much more useful in practice. You can browse the course library if you want before you purchase the course access. If you purchase course access, you get access to all courses, and you also get downloadable PDF certificates to prove your skills to your potential employer or freelancing clients or anybody else who wants to give you money for your skills. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.